and start recording. Okay, so I'm going to start with, so I already have files referenced in, and these are all corridor files, and you can see there's my components, my top meshes, other components, my contours showing up in my corridors, my brake line features, all of those different things. One of the things that I like to do, I guess, as far as when I go to create from a top mesh, is I will actually go into the level display. I'm going to go ahead and select all of these guys. And what I'll do is since I want to concentrate on top mesh, I'll actually just turn everything off and then turn my top mesh on so that I know what it's really going to be grabbing. So that I can just go ahead and view those things that I really want to look at. So using top mesh, similar to from elements, a little bit different because it is going to select either that, or there's also where you can select the bottom mesh. So if I have on my ABC and I have a bottom mesh that I created through my templates, identified that those features correctly, I can create that bottom mesh as well. So the way that I would do that, again, open roads modeling, workflow, and then train on the menu bar. And then in the ribbon, I would pick additional methods. And under additional methods, I would do the create train model from design meshes. So in here, what's going to pop up is it's going to ask me select side of closed mesh. And so again, you'll see a top and a bottom. And then also, if I remember correctly, if there's a mesh that you have for like an unsuitable material and you make that just a mesh with your templates, I believe that pops up in here too. I'm not 100% positive on that, but I think that's the case. So in here, so I'm going to pick top, and then under my surface feature definition, my default go-to is usually the 5-foot major, and then I just kind of play around with that. But as you can see, there are quite a few different feature definitions I can choose from. You can see too, thematic height, slope, some of those things. Those come into play. I don't know that we're going to get into creating the delta and then showing a difference in surfaces and showing that heat map, as you will, like for different, like for geofab, being able to identify where we would need some of that stuff. That'll probably be in the next sessions, but if we have time, I might be able to just pull something up and we can walk through that. But on these design features, again, I'm just going to use the proposed 5-foot major. That's kind of my default that I use. I want to do a roll exterior. So I'm going to create a terrain exterior, same thing, feature definition. I'm just going to put it on a terrain exterior boundary that I want. And then for voids, that's like we'll get into that too on the creating groups and holes and voids. Voids more so if there's something that I don't want to have in there. If I have an area that I really don't want to triangulate because I'm not doing anything in that proposed area, and I'm just going to have my existing terrain and tie everything in, like in the center or kind of off-site, then that's what I would use for that rule void. So I usually I go ahead and set these, but you'll see it's also going to be in my prompt window. So I'll have my dialog box. I set it in there just because then I know I can just kind of click through here, know that everything's good. So I'm left clicking as I go through to accept everything. I want a terrain exterior. I don't want a rule void. And then data point to accept. So I left click in the screen. And then you're going to see it's computing the design surface. So what it's doing is, and I brought this over here because I had a feeling it would kind of just turn to nothing, but that way you can see it's actually creating those surfaces. So once those surfaces are created, we'll go take a look at those. And I'm not sure why it's taking this long. They're not that big. There we go. All right. So I'm just going to zoom in here. So you can see kind of got a little bit of a green outline. That's because that's my terrain existing. I can change that. I can update that. I can do whatever I need to with that. I'm going to turn off my references. And again, this is where I had mentioned to go ahead and leave these attached. You want to make sure that those are attached. I'm turning them off just so that we can see our terrains here. So I'm going to pick this, and you can see it went on terrain exterior boundary for feature definition. Terrain boundary one is what it named it. And then I also have another one. So by doing design meshes, if I have separate roads, ponds, different things like that, it can actually go ahead and create those as their own surfaces. So you'll see underneath my open roads model and my Explorer, when I go, it's going to say I have two design terrains. And both of those, so like with my design terrain here, so let's say, okay, I don't really want to have my feature definition as a, as a terrain exterior. That's where I can then change that. I believe I thought there was a proposed, maybe there is not, it might just be terrain existing. But I can change that through here if I wanted to. If I want to go to not template points, it should be linear. If I wanted to change it to break line, I can change it to break line. I can change those different elements. But also notice that I have, so if I pick that, that's my boundary. If I pick my model, that's my model from boundary. So that's on terrain proposed boundary. And that controls, I can control what my contours on and off. And they must just be turned. I don't know why they're not showing up. They might be turned off. Nope. I'm going to go down to this guy. I'm not sure why those aren't showing up. Same thing, terrain, proposed boundary. Those should both be showing up. But in this design terrain, so I have my proposed. So in here, that name seed, that's where I can change this to. And if I want to change that name, I can go ahead and change that and update that. And then my volume option, again, this is a design. So these are some of the things that we want to make sure that when we create our terrains that we have them on the right one. So like if we get an existing survey terrain, we want to make sure that that volume option is set to existing. And then if we have like a bottom terrain that we've created, of making sure that's on a subgrade. So those are important when it comes to the earthwork calculations. Items attached, again, this gets more into the pay items when we get into that. That'll be in a separate training. But as far as the terrain models, I'm trying to figure out why these are not turning on. Not sure if it did not create it correctly. Might not have.
Are you in the 3D or 2D?
3D. So all terrain should be created. I guess that's the other thing. Terrain should be created in the 3D model. It should be. Not sure why it's not showing up. You have to rerun it. Yeah, I'll check into that and see why that one didn't run. But for instance, this one, I'm just going to go to this, set this active. As my terrain. So I should be able to change that name as US 24. Okay. There we go. All right, so then I can turn back on my references here. And you can see how this terrain is just my contours are following the top of my top mesh. So again, if I'm just trying to get a top mesh terrain, that's really the method that I would use. I'll have to see why, because I tested this earlier, it came out. I'll have to see why this terrain didn't create and only this, or why it didn't show the correct information. But on as far as creating the terrain from design meshes, this is the method that you would use to create those terrains. Again, like I said, I'll see what happened with that one. It should have created that. I can probably just go through that again. So that exterior boundary, so you guys saw it too, I created that as separate one. That'll actually help out a lot too when if I'm working on a project and let's say I need to throw out a shapefile or a KMZ to like an environmental map, then or the KMZ onto Google Earth, I can take that outer limit and throw that out there so that those limits can be identified like through our environmental groups to be able to go and assess what impacts those types of things so that they can utilize those boundaries that we have. That's one of the reasons I create those, is more to just to have that as a background.
Jeremy, can you turn on the 3D view?
This is the 3D. Sahar.
Wow.
So in creating proposed terrains, we use the 3D seed file. So it is just a 3D. So if I go in to my models, I use the 3D seed to do that. One of the things that we have found is if you try and do a terrain model in a 2D, 3D model, it causes havoc with a lot of our drainage elements. So we use 2D model for everything except terrain models. That includes existing and proposed. So I think there, Sahar, let's stop recording.